Hello and welcome to Nigeria Decides. The countdown to the elections in 2019 have begun, and this one is shaping up to be a bruising battle between some of the biggest heavyweights in Naija politics. Join us every week here until you cast your vote next February, and we promise to help you make sense of the ever-changing political landscape of the fatherland. Now, tough choices to make in 2019, so we'll try to help you decide on Nigeria Decides. I'm Mark Edo, and just let's get something straight. I am a Nigerian, despite looks. And now, how do Nigerians here in the diaspora know what's happening back home? Well, they read The Trumpet, and we've got the online newspaper's owner, Femi Okutubo, here with us. Next, she wants to run for office, and she says more women should run too. She's the lawyer and humanist Aisha Agbaje. And a man who is not a Nigerian, but he certainly knows a lot about Nigeria. He's PwC Chief Economist in Lagos, Dr. Andrew Nevin. Welcome, everyone. Later in the program, live from Lagos, you'll hear from the outspoken journalist and social commentator Suleiman Alade. He's got a lot to tell you. Okay, so let's start by taking a quick look at the top. President Muhammadu Buhari now has his nomination form firmly in hand, and he's all set to run for a second term, but his success depends on how well you think he's done in his first term. Let's take a quick look back.
Muhammadu Buhari surprised many when he defeated the incumbent PDP candidate, Goodluck Jonathan. For the first time in Nigeria, an incumbent had lost an election. The APC and Buhari campaign slogan was simple, change, and in 2015, Nigerians were thirsty for that change. More recently, President Buhari's health has become a major talking point. Despite condemning health tourism, the president has made several trips to the UK for medical treatment, leaving his deputy, Professor Yemi Oshinbajo, to run the country in his absence. During his visit to the United States in April this year, Buhari seemed frail in contrast to the more robust Donald Trump, who was also in his 70s. Although when he met his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron in Nigeria 3 months later, he looked much healthier. The Buhari administration has succeeded in making the Nigerian economy less dependent on oil revenues, and it's promoted diversification. Nigeria's economy is growing again. External reserves are at a 5-year high at about $47.5 billion, and inflation is finally falling. He's also overseen the release of 106 Chibok schoolgirls. In spite of those achievements, many Nigerians have become disillusioned by the lack of progress made by the Buhari administration. Promises to fight corruption haven't always had the desired outcome, and efforts to fully restore security, particularly in the northeast,
are still to be met. So, that was a pretty clear run-up. I know there will be those that disagree with that and will have something to say. Femi, let's keep this simple. Very first simple question for Nigeria Decides. How do you think Buhari has done?
I think Buhari came into office. People had a lot of high hopes and high expectations from him. In some areas, I would give him, ticks. But in many other areas, I think he has failed the nation. In terms of, even one of his high points was the issue of corruption, the anti-corruption policy. I think it's been quite unfortunate that it's been one-sided, and so that has, put a lot of holes.
Well, is it perceived as one-sided, or is it one-sided? I guess it's who you ask.
I believe it's definitely one-sided, because again, when you look at even the current government that he heads, there are people in there who, under a number of circumstances, probably should also be facing investigations at the very least, if not trials, and that has not happened. And I think I saw that coming. Once you have a situation where you've had people that have backed you to get into power, you can't bite the finger that feeds you.
And it's funny that because Buhari's coming back again, isn't he, Aisha?
Yes.
Then he's coming back with one clear message this time, which is actually corruption. He's running on a corruption ticket. That's the one. It's almost as if security has been pushed slightly to the side and the corruption drive is his key message. Is that a good move?
I do think it's a good move, and I also don't think it's a good move because Nigeria does have other issues apart from corruption. I feel like he needs to also focus on a lot more other issues. The economy as well is one of them. And corruption is just not one of the main priorities that I would look at. I think that he needs to do a lot more work and do a lot more work in terms of the economy. He's not doing so well in terms of the economy. I feel like everything is still the same thing. I know they say that he's changed this, he's changed that, but I can't feel that change. And if I don't feel it, isn't there something wrong?
I remember hearing a story that someone was saying that I'll take corruption, just give me a job. Now you're laughing,
Yeah,
Andrew.
that's
You
right.
are the economist. You're based in Lagos. I see you in Lagos all the time. I see you on stages here and there all around the world talking about Nigeria. I know you're passionate about Nigeria, and you have to speak to investors and talk to investor confidence. So from your perspective, from that unique prism that you have as PwC chief economist, let's just talk about economy first. How well do you think he's done?
Well, I mean, the administration came into a difficult spot. Remember, they came in, the oil price plunged. We were not prepared for that. The problem now, though, is that we're growing at almost 3% population. So we say we're out of recession, but we're not. We're still getting poorer. We got poorer per capita in 2015. We got poorer in 2016. We got poorer in 2017. We're getting poorer in 2018, despite the fact oil is nearly $70.
And that's what really matters, right? That's what really matters.
2019, the IMF is saying 2020, 2020. So how many years can go poorer and poorer? So I think there has been a lot of progress on ease of doing business, and PEBEC has been very focused on it, some of the states. But overall, we are just not going fast enough. We need a private sector that's probably 10 times bigger than it is today for us to be wealthy. And if we don't get there, we're going to continue to get poorer and poorer. So there's a number of policies that just haven't been addressed to fix that.
Although the government is coming, I was looking at what they said, because of course, you know, they're going to come out and say clearly this is what we've done. They say we've stabilized inflation. External revenues have doubled since October 2016. I think there's something like almost $50 billion. But what you're saying is all that doesn't matter because it gets trumped by the fact that basically you get, the country is getting, the country, men and women, feel at least like they're getting poorer.
Well, they are getting poorer.
They are
and poorer.
getting
The
poorer.
numbers are getting, and I don't think we'd say it doesn't matter. I think those things are all great
Relevant.
in our view, but they haven't done enough. So if you look, no matter whose fault it is, we don't have a petroleum bill that helps us get investment in
That's still
petroleum.
in
We haven't
limbo.
sorted out the power industry in a way that works. We haven't sorted out the fuel subsidies. So a lot of good things have happened, but not enough for the pressure we have with our population growth.
And okay, I know you don't have a crystal ball, any of you, but let's just see, looking forward, what do you think is going to happen in this election in terms of, is that going to be the deciding factor? What do you think Buhari's chances are, Femi?
Buhari is definitely facing a tougher battle compared to 2015. In 2015, people wanted change, and he was able to ride on that mantra. This time around, he's facing opposition, not just within his own-
Serious opposition. Every
Very
week
serious,
seems like
yeah.
someone else comes in.
Absolutely, and not just within the country, but even right from within his own political party, within his own geopolitical zone. So it's not going to be an easy battle. But I think we're still in early days because, again, the way Nigerian politics is, there are also other factors you need to look at. So what would happen in, say, for example, the major other political party, opposition party, the PDP,
How well they
would
can
also
get their
have an
act together,
effect
basically.
on what would happen in APC and the general elections as well. And then obviously you also have a number of groups. You know, you've got the youths, for example, who are trying to come together.
And you've got Obasanjo with his coalition.
With his own coalition as well. So all those are factors that would play a role. So at this point, I think it's still too early to predict. But I think it would appear that Buhari's chances of returning are diminishing.
And you mentioned youth. Aisha wants to run for politics. Yeah. So you're looking at the president, circa 2030 maybe? President Aisha.
Certainly.
No, but you are passionate about it. You're off to Harvard after this to go and study. So you've got a clear path and your passion is to get more young people and in particular more women into
Involved,
politics.
yeah.
And you almost sound frustrated when I talk to you about it.
I am very much frustrated. I feel like, for example, APC, they theoretically they act like they are all for inclusion, but in practice they're not, and we could see from the nomination forms, and also I did mention that a lot more women served under PDP than they served under APC.
And you're not just talking about in the cabinet, you're talking generally in the government. There were more.
Yeah, and youth are coming out. A lot of youths are coming out, but I've seen a lot of them rising up to the campaign, rising up to the task, but they've also closed the curtain on their campaign because of the nomination forms, and it's ridiculous. How am I supposed to get 20 million to run for a political position? And it's absolutely ridiculous, unheard of.
So not too young to run, but too poor to run.
Exactly.
We're going to talk more about that in a moment, but we're going to take a quick break now. We have so much more to discuss. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Nigeria Decides. I'm Mark Edo and I'm pleased to welcome back our panel. Now, there are several candidates who are vying for Muhammadu Buhari's job, the presidency. So some of whom have already declared their intentions, but there are many who are outside of the political elite and they're also throwing their hats in the ring. Let's take a look at some of them now in more detail. Now, I have to start, of course, with Nigeria's former vice president under the Obasanjo regime. That's Atiku Abubakar, looking strong, very strong, isn't he, Femi?
Well, he is. He's got experience, having held the number 2 position. Aside from that, he has a very strong political machinery. During the Obasanjo regime, his political machinery was quite used actively in the pursuit of office. But I think that's also been diluted in recent years, because you find out that some of the people who were part of that political machinery are now trying to vie themselves.
The old guard, as they
The
call
old guard, as you know, as one would call them. So again, it's not going to be an easy ride. Again, I know there are also people, some, for example, even his former boss, President Obasanjo,
Baba,
is not a keen fan of Atiku. So you would expect that people like that would be, they've said so much about him.
Would you say probably this is his best chance right here?
I don't think so. I'm still not convinced that he's going to be a top contender.
You don't think he'll be a top contender? Wow.
I agree.
Yeah, because again, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a case that his time may have gone past. You've got some people, for example, because, for example, there was a debate between him and I think the former governor of Jigawa State, who was saying that, one was saying that the other needed to step down for the other. Now, and the gentleman was saying that, yes, you may be older than me, but I'm more senior than you politically. That I
senior you politically.
Exactly. I got into
I love that.
I got into the House of Representatives before you in 1979.
So he gave him a lesson, a history lesson.
So, and those are the kind of, that's the kind of competition, that's the kind of comments that are coming forth.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be an easy ride, and I'm not sure he's likely, he's going to be selected.
Aisha, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, you don't represent all youth, but you are on a path, a very clear path to one day run for office of some sort yourself. I know I mentioned that you're off to Harvard University to get the, as we used to call it in Lagos, the Pali, the papers. Yeah. So you're serious about this, and so you're watching this stuff like a hawk because you're next. Your generation is next. 25 years old, by the way. 25 years old, and she already has political ambitions. I like it. From your perspective, so you're looking at all these candidates like
I'm tired
Atiku,
of seeing the same people.
and you're tired of seeing the old guard.
I am tired. It's so exhausting.
You've given up then. You don't feel that...
I don't feel he's a top contender at all. He's not saying anything new, and I feel like Nigeria is at the place whereby they know they want something new, and they're aware of this.
So let's move on to the next. Let's go to Bukola Saraki, the current Senate president. Obviously, the man whose eyes, especially APC's eyes, are on him. He doesn't attract you then?
No, I don't think he does either. I feel like he's a very angry person for some reason.
An angry person?
Yes, and I do feel like he's going to stir up something.
Angry is good in politics, isn't it? You've got to be tough.
It's good, but I'm looking at his records. I'm looking at what did they do for Kwara State?
So, okay, let's turn a little bit and look sort of like take a little bit of a bird's eye view of this, Andrew. From your perspective, do you think this old guard, and Atiku and all the main contenders you can consider the old guard, even Saraki, are you confident that they have new ways of approaching the economy? Can the old guard solve the economic problems? Do they have new solutions?
Well, I think that's the question. That's Nigeria decides. That's what we're here about. So, but if we go back, I mean, the economic model that Nigeria has used up till now no longer works. And what is that economic model? There was some oil wealth, and it got redistributed. But we're going over 200 million people. 2 million barrels a day is not much for 200 million people. 3 million isn't much. 4 million isn't much. We need a different economic model that's not about taking oil wealth and redistributing it, but is about creating wealth. So I think the question for the country is, in the political old guard that are running for presidency, are they going to bring a new way of thinking that we create wealth and become richer and stop being poor, or are they going to continue with the old economic model? The net result is, as we talked before the break, we get poorer and poorer and poorer. And I think that's the fundamental question for the country.
And one of the big questions is also security. This is a big issue, and this is probably one of the first things that comes up. Muhammadu Buhari ran on a corruption, security, and the economy. Those were the three things he ran and won. In 2015. Now, largely, we sense that it's a single message, or it seems to be a single message. Let's look at security for a second. We talked about Saraki. He's from the Middle Belt. David Mark has also thrown his hat in the ring. That's the latest thing. The former Senate leader, David Mark. There he is. David Mark also wants the job. None of these guys are red herrings. When I first saw Saraki, I thought it was like one of those Kenyan runners, when like two Kenyan runners run in front of the other one, and then they pull away, and then they let the other guy win. I'm like, why are they stopping? You know, I thought it was just like there to give him peace, but actually they want the job. The ambition is there. This man's ambition is there as well. The Middle Belt is a big issue in Nigeria, a huge issue. More people have died in the Middle Belt than in the northeast of Nigeria this year. So how much is the security issue in the northeast and increasingly in the Middle Belt going to play as a factor in deciding the next president, basically the security president? Femi.
If you ask me, some of these, in a good climb, you'd expect that security and a number of issues should be a major determining factor as to who actually wins an election.
Well, Buhari said he was going to defeat Boko Haram in 1 year.
Yeah, but the point I'm really trying to make here is that sometimes it is not those issues that really matter. So, you know, in reality, you've got a situation where our politics has been monetized. So at the end of the day, you know, if the money is put in the right place, sadly, some of those things would not be an issue. But let me attempt to answer the question a bit more directly. Yes, security is an issue, and I would expect that now that you know, you have a more politically enlightened situation, I would expect that these are issues that the opposition, for example, would try and use
Capitalize on,
like it was done the other way around in 2015. So again, but my worry though is that yes, security is a problem, but I'm not sure it's going to be a major determining factor in terms of determining who gets to Aso Rock. And that's just the reality of Nigeria.
What may have a big effect are the candidates like Aminu Tambuwal, who is now the governor of Sokoto State and the former Speaker of the House of Representatives in the previous administration, and also Rabiu Kwankwaso, who is in Kano, is a son of the soil. 2 times Kano governor and also defense minister as well in the past administrations. You take Kwankwaso, for example, he has that huge following in Kano, and it was Kano that came out in droves for Buhari. So now he hasn't, I mean, if you have Kwankwaso there, he now can't rely as much on the Kano vote. So there you go, that's Tambuwal. Always smiling, Tambuwal, isn't he? He's got the friendliest face in politics, I think. So you have all these factors. But what's interesting to me, I think, is the third-party candidates. Now, this is something I can't remember seeing with such vigor in any previous administration. The fact that we're starting to take third-party candidates seriously. Let's bring up Kingsley Moghalu. Kingsley Moghalu, former CBN former CBN governor, and a serious contender. This man wants to be president. Andrew, you know him. You've met him before, you know, in your circles at PwC. He's saying some interesting stuff, but he doesn't have the money. Let's be honest. But he's actually being taken seriously and he's getting a groundswell. What do you think?
With Kingsley, he is an economist. He knows the Nigerian economy very well. He's actually, I think, of all the candidates, the only one I've actually seen to articulate an economic strategy along the lines that we were just discussing. So from that viewpoint, I think he's, looks in the right direction. I can't comment whether politically there's any path for him to presidency, but he certainly, from what I've seen, I mean, he's creating some excitement and at least a conversation about how do we manage this economy so we don't continue to get poor. So that is very good for the country.
Is that starting to have an impact, do you think, on the main parties, APC and PDP? Femi?
I think it definitely is. These candidates are now being taken a lot more seriously. But I think one of the challenges as well is that even though there's quite a number of them, you find out that some of them, to me, are not really they're not really prepared.
What do you mean prepared?
For example, there's one of them, and I won't necessarily want to mention the name.
Oh, go on.
Now.
Go on.
But,
we're friends here.
There's one
no
of
one's
them
watching.
that when I see him, when I actually see him, it just makes me think that does this guy think he's running for a student union, a university student union election? He needs to put a bit more maturity into what he's doing, and I'm sure that with that I've already given a clue. And so people need to act presidential. And some of them are not acting presidential. They don't seem to appear to have the presidential material.
Okay, so that's very controversial. I'm going to get it out of you after the break. We'll take a break now. There's so much more to discuss, so please join us just in a few moments. Hello and welcome back to Nigeria Decides. I'm Mark Edo and we're joined by the political correspondent Suleiman Alade. He's in Lagos via Skype. Suleiman's going to help us make sense of some of the biggest political stories happening in Nigeria at the moment. Suleiman, hello. Welcome to the program.
Well, many thanks. Good to see you all.
Suleiman, do you agree with me that this is probably the most exciting political bear pit that we've ever seen the bones fly out of since I've been watching politics? I mean, it looks like it's going to be a bruising battle, don't you think?
Absolutely, Mark. A lot of people have been waiting for this moment. 2019 is sure going to be one big bellyache for many politicians, and this is because as you move towards the elections, you bound movement from across political line, just as we've seen. And that's not the end. Just wait, just before the end of the year, you're likely to see people moving from one other party to the other. Call it a swap, but that's what we're likely to see as we move towards a big moment.
So you're going to see more musical chairs between the parties. I mean, we were talking just before the break about ideologies and the term of APC's ideology and PDP's ideology. What do they stand for? You know what the Conservative Party in the UK stands for, and the Labour Party. You know what the Democrats and you know what the Republicans stand for in the US. When it comes to Nigeria, especially when you see this jumping back and forth from parties, it's almost like they're not parties, they're platforms. Am I being too cynical, do you think, Suleiman?
You're not cynical at all, Mark. The truth is that when we have them come on our show, or you bring any politician and you ask them the same thing, they all tell you they have ideologies. But again, there's a semblance of ideologies of one thing that they're not even too sure of. And that is why many of them shy away from debates. That's another key issue here. Many Nigerian politicians don't want to debate issues leading up to elections because they don't have anything clear-cut ideas on how to marshal out, the issues or problems bedeviling the country. And that is why it's absolutely difficult for anyone to say this is what they are. They just go with the names, whether you are progressive or you are a Democrat. But the truth is, till this very moment, we still haven't been able to see a clear-cut definition, just the way we saw in the Second Republic with the UPN and the NPN. But for now, it's same of the same, but with a different nomenclature.
So let's talk about someone who does like to speak, the motivational speaker and businessman Fela Durotoye. He's emerged as the consensus candidate for a party called the Presidential Aspirants Coming Together Party. Isn't that a great name? Coming Together, PACT they're called, ahead of the 2019 presidential election. What can you tell us about Fela?
Well, for now, I think a whole lot hasn't been known about Fela, and many politicians, many journalists here in the country are still having a really tough getting Fela to come talk. Fela has been a little bit evasive, and that's just the truth. I, for one, I have tried to reach out to Fela, and people will pick up, his number. But for Fela, I think coming together, talking about PACT, because I also had a conversation with Professor Kingsley Moghalu, and he said he's not angry about PACT, but he's disappointed and angry with the process that led to the emergence of Fela. So meaning there's a skewed process. So if we have Professor Moghalu fought in that, and we're also having a couple of other people fought in the process that led to PACT, some are already saying it looks like, the young alternatives that should be coming up in the political fray in the country are stealing the very bad nature and idea of the old breed. But Fela is a good guy so far, a motivational speaker, but Nigerians are not looking for words now, they're looking for action, and that is why, very importantly, many are still talking about Kingsley Moghalu, who has been able to analyze and pinpoint some of the issues. I was lucky to get this from him, and this is a book he's written, and he said since 2016, that was when he started having an idea of what it is like to come in, leave the armchair, analyst mode and come in as a president to solve our problem. So we're still hoping that all other aspirants and candidates in other parties will come talk to Nigerians and sell their points and leave these normal rhetorics of telling us about security, economy, without, at the end of the day, putting a finger on what the problem truly is.
Now, Suleiman, let's talk about something that's really trending at the moment, and that is the nomination forms, the expression of interest nomination forms. That's the form that you receive, that you go and you receive that says, yes, I want to be president of Nigeria, thank you very much, or I want to be governor of my state. Those forms cost a lot of money. It's almost, we've enshrined into law, never too young to run, but we haven't enshrined never too poor to run, because they cost 45 million naira, I believe, the APC. I think that's a 125,000 crispy US dollars. How are you going to raise that if you're a young person? How are you going to raise that if you're starting out in politics? And how did President Buhari raise it?
I think, honestly, when the APC was the opposition party, they sold the whole idea to Nigerians that they were really truly progressives and for the people, and not about money bags and money politics in the Nigerian context, which many are waiting to see go into extinction. So now the PDP that once had a lot of money bags is coming with a lower amount, as low as 12 million naira to come in with. Even at that is still too much.
It's a lot of money.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity, not to counterpart bill, which is already there, it then means that automatically, somehow the young people have been shut out of this political scheme for 2019. Until we get to put this maybe into the Electoral Act and see that this is not about money, then I think what these politicians are already saying would amount to telling you something or gifting you something and going back behind you to actually take back or snap it off you. That even the governor of Kaduna State, Adam Nasir El-Rufai, did say about 2 days ago that, hey, he's likely going to sell his house.
He's going to sell a house for his form? And then, of course, wait, let me turn to Aisha here, because I know that she's chomping at the bit and spitting feathers all at once about this. Aisha, do you have a spare $125,000 in your bank account?
Of course not.
Absolutely
not.
This is okay. Let's be fair now. You've got APC, you've got PDP. There's no a big party that has a subscription-based model to raise funds. They raise it in two ways. They get money donations, or they sell forms effectively. That's the way it is in Nigeria at the moment. But is this willful, subconscious, or conscious effort to continue the status quo and elude the next generation? What do
I
you
think it's a conscious effort to elude the next generation.
And how does that work?
I think by automatically, we know that by increasing a fee or something, you're automatically kicking out young
Eliminating a
people,
great number of people who
right?
can't afford it.
Even women and young people. How do the average Nigerian, they earn, some of them don't even earn close to 100,000 a month. So how do you expect them to afford 22 million, 45 million? Where are they going to get such money from?
So I guess what it's then saying is, I mean, let's think about solutions here. Then saying it's almost saying that young people should then start to think about smaller parties, smaller platforms, because
that's
many
exactly what I
smaller
was gonna
parties
say.
are saying you don't.
Yes.
Some of them are even saying there's no subscription
Yes.
fee. Basically, come in. So it injects within that third-party option a little bit of energy in a way. My father used to say, "Never waste a good crisis, son." Yeah, and that's basically really what's happening here. It's an opportunity for them to think about third parties instead of trying to muscle your way in
There's
to
actually
the APC and the
22
PDP.
other political parties in Nigeria.
And they don't cost $125,000.
So young people can expand their horizons and look at other parties that would help them. It doesn't have to be APC or PDP.
Andrew.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the young people, in effect, control the country. They just don't know it, right? I mean, the demographics are there, the numbers are there, you've got young, connected, smart people. They can decide this election if they choose to, right? And they can choose the leaders that are going to do the things that are needed to create the opportunities. I mean, how much longer can we go without jobs for young people, opportunities for young people on that? But I just don't think that they've necessarily woken up the political consciousness. But if you just look at the numbers, most countries, because of the demographics, if you go to the UK or you go to the United States, older voters control who's elected. But
In the US, yeah.
in Nigeria, that's not true. The younger voters do it. So,
is
people
it-
like Aisha, it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
So is it a matter of time, Femi? Are we talking about a matter of time when that sort of that power wakes up? I mean, you're
They're
here.
waking up. They are waking up.
But
That's
there's no
something.
real inspirational candidate that's sort of grabbed them, is there?
Put
Femi,
it this
quickly.
way, I think it's a time bomb that is waiting to explode at any time. For me, I think there's even a bigger issue. The bigger issue is that if someone is just buying a nomination form for 45 million naira, what is going to happen when that person gets into office? That's just
How many favors do they have to pay back with that money?
absolutely. And then how much more do they need to spend to actually to get to the to the office? So that's the bigger issue for me, and not so not till we have a situation where politics is demonetized, we're still going to be having this challenge.
All right, we need to pay some bills and go to some advertisers, so we'll take a quick break now, but we have so much more to discuss. Please join us, and we'll hear more from Suleiman as well. Hello, we're back with Nigeria Decides. I'm Mark Edo. Still with us via internet, the political correspondent Suleiman Alade. It's not a sharp picture, but it is a sharp guy right there. So, Suleiman, let's talk specifics now, because I remember, I think it was Bill Clinton that said when he was running against Bob Dole back in the day, he said, "It's the economy, stupid." That's all that matters, basically. He said it's all about the economy. I think in Nigeria, you probably say it's the economy and jobs, stupid. That's all that really matters. But I wanted to hone in on a specific saga, a drama, a very, very colorful story, and try to see what we could divine from this interaction between the current administration and a behemoth in the Nigerian economy, MTN. Now, a $2 billion fine has been imposed on them. They're Africa's largest mobile phone company, MTN, South African, by the Nigerian authorities. And that covers over a decade worth of what they're saying is allegedly unpaid taxes. And then there's an additional $8 million in alleged unauthorized dividend expatriation. Now, both claims, of course, MTN is saying, no, we didn't do it. They're saying they're denying them. And they've applied to the Federal Court of Nigeria for what they're calling injunctive relief. They want to protect their assets from the Central Bank of Nigeria and from the Attorney General. This thing rolls on, and I know you watch this like a hawk. Tell us what's going on now. What's going on?
think the truth is now that MTN has gone to the courts, it's sub judice for us to really go into details. But again, the truth about this is that there must be something not truly crystal clear here. It's either the government needs to come out clear on MTN, because we've had a series of controversial issues relating to MTN. It's either they're getting the axe hitting down on that particular firm, or now this other one which MTN has. For the very first time, we're getting to see MTN come out strong to say, no, this is not true. And it's gone almost 48 hours since MTN came up with that release. So we're still yet to hear any word from the government of Nigeria. Perhaps maybe they're looking into their books to see if fully wrong. And if they did get it wrong on this, then it's going to be a smear on this particular administration, especially the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and the tax man himself, because MTN is not letting this slide by, and many Nigerians are keeping their eyes on this, and knowing full well that in the past MTN has got its hand burned, which they have owned up then. But on this one, they're saying enough is enough. This is truly absolutely not correct, and we're ready to fight this in the law court.
Now, Andrew, let me bring Andrew Nevin, PwC's chief economist in Nigeria. The government clearly wants to say in this an election year that they're getting tough on this. This is a big thing. I mean, when I first saw that figure of 8 billion naira, I almost imagined two guys somewhere in some government ministry were sitting down with, I don't know, over a plate of amala and assorted meat, and they say, well, what figure? 8 sounds good. It almost sounds so arbitrary, like it was just like plucked out of the sky, and so massive, because it's even many times more than their revenue, basically, and they're not letting it go. From an outsider's perspective, you're wondering what on earth is going on, and what messages is this sending to international investors and international companies? Why are they doing it? And when you talk to people, do people ask you about this MTN saga?
Of course they do, and can't comment on the saga itself. What I can say is that outside the country, people are really fixated on this, and every place that's considering major investments is looking at this. And it's not even a question of who's right, who's wrong. It's just creates such a degree of uncertainty for it. So regardless of how this plays out in the courts, it's a real problem for the country. And if we take a step back, we have, and I hate to say this, but it's true, we have a very poor reputation in Nigeria. And we're only going to really make progress if we can improve that reputation. And when things like this happen, it sets us back on that journey. So it's a real struggle that we've created for ourselves, and I'm not sure how we overcome this.
Femi, do you think that, what's the motivation behind it, do you think?
It's a bit difficult to actually, without having the full facts, because again, just like Suleiman said, I think there are certain things that we're not being told. When one side is saying something, the other side is saying something else, they both can't be telling the truth of the same thing. So we don't have the full facts. But I think, obviously, MTN and the federal government seem to have had this ongoing battle. A few years back, it was around the issue of not disconnecting a number of unregistered SIMs, for which there was
That's
a
what
fine,
kicked it off.
Which is, this is what kicked it off. I think when you even now look at South Africa itself, you have a situation where Nigerians, among other Africans, have also faced a lot of, they faced a hostile environment from people there. They're claiming that Nigerians have come there to take their jobs and so on. So some of those things could actually be at work and be at play here in terms of the whole picture.
Suleiman is still with us over in Lagos. Suleiman, are you there? What is the sort of, when you're talking to people on the streets and in business, you talk, that's what you do, you professionally talk to people. What's the mood with regards to this, with regards to the MTN saga?
Well, anyway, I think it's too early in the day for them to actually establish their worry on this, because for a few number of those I spoke to, they're trying to liken this to what happened with Etisalat that saw the former investors leave the country. But again, because we still don't truly know what this is about, so you really can't say a semblance of what then with the former owners of it. But again, I think as everyone has said that over in London. I think we just hope that they will sort this out, and because this is about the Nigerian economy, number one. And two, as we move into election year, don't forget that almost everyone is also talking about the problems of unemployment. And if anything goes awry on this particular one, then we'll be taking a deep down in solving the problems of unemployment instead of actually getting more and more people coming in to invest and see how they can shore up the economy.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, it's jobs stupid, basically, if you just borrow a term from Bill Clinton's campaign. I mean, that's probably what you as a young person talk about first and foremost, jobs.
Yes, unemployment, because there's large amount of unemployment amongst young people in Nigeria. So this would be really, really, really hit Nigeria. Because I remember when the Nigerian hair actually closed down, that hit Nigeria as well. So I think this would have a really big impact on the level of unemployment in Nigeria as well. So they have to take that into consideration and just come to a diplomatic solution to this.
Well, I want to say thank you for Suleiman. We're going to let Suleiman go. Let's go forward. We've got about 2 minutes or so. Any of you, let's wrap this up in a nice bow, and then come back to where we started. Muhammadu Buhari, going forward now. We've talked about very quickly some of his successes. We've talked about some of his challenges. I mean, could you look forward a little bit and maybe tell us what you might see? What's the next big thing we're going to see on the horizon? It seems like every day there's something new. But Femi, what are you expecting?
Well, I think we're going to see a very interesting battle ahead. In terms of, I see a person like, I don't know why, but I see a person like Bukola Saraki playing a very prominent role.
Possibly getting the nomination?
Possibly. He seems to be the cat with 9 lives who's refused to die. He seems to be a very smart...
I think he's down to number 5. But yeah.
He seems to be a very smart guy, so I think he's going to cause some upset, and he has already started doing that as well. In terms of the All Progressives Congress, I think each day things look more and more dicey for President Buhari in terms of returning to office.
And Aisha, what do you want to see?
I can't tell you what I want to see, but I will tell you what I don't want to see. I don't want to see those sick leaves again. I think he's taken way too much sick leave. I work...
No more sick leaves, says Aisha.
I work 9 to 5 in a year, and I get 25 days off. He's had more than 3 months off, and he runs the country. So I do not want to see any more of that. In terms of Saraki and the rest, I feel like PDP has a lot on its hands right now. And he has candidates like David Mark that is so loyal to the party. So that's big.
15 seconds I've got to give you to wrap up. Final thoughts.
Well, I mean, this is a pivotal moment for Nigeria. We can't go on the way we've been going on. But I trust Nigerians are going to make the right decision. So God bless Nigeria.
God bless Nigeria, from your mouth to God's ears. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to Femi, to Aisha, and to Andrew for the first episode of Nigeria Decides. Don't forget, and Suleiman, not to forget you over there in Lagos, Suleiman. This has been Nigeria Decides. Don't forget, you can follow us at RealJHUK on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're on all of those. I'm Mark Edo, and from the entire team here in London, goodbye, and see you next time on Nigeria Decides.